Well, here's a look at what's happened in the Bundesliga. You see Bayer Leverkusen split points with the scoreless draw against Wolfsburg. Union Berlin put 4 past Hoffenheim. Meanwhile, Stuttgart beat Borussia Dortmund by 2-1. Heidenheim lost to Freiburg 1-0. Mönchengladbach and Eintracht Frankfurt finished 1-1. And it was the same in terms of splitting points for Mainz and Augsburg. Here's a look at what this means, though, in terms of the Bundesliga title race. Bayern Munich, they remain at the top, and now they are 8 points clear of Bayer Leverkusen. And for more on this, we welcome in our friend Raphael Honigstein to join us. Rafa, good to see you. So Bayern Munich with that 8-point lead at the top of the table. Is the title race over?
Well, it gives them a great cushion going into that game against Leverkusen in Leverkusen next week. I think Bayern's main target was to make sure that they keep at least the 6 points, but Leverkusen slipped up and now they're under real pressure. If they don't win the game, even a draw, I think is not enough to really challenge Bayern. So Bayern in an amazing position. A win, I think, knocks out Leverkusen effectively. A draw kind of decides it for them. And even if they were to lose, they're still 5 points clear. So this puts a lot of extra pressure on Leverkusen to go for the 3 points on Saturday.
Well, Rafa, obviously we talk about Bayern. Leverkusen were the only team that I believe that could challenge them for the Bundesliga title this year. Leverkusen play Bayern next. So even if a win with Leverkusen, do you still think Bayern will be very comfortable on their cushion, or they might be slightly uncomfortable?
Well, I think a point is great for Bayern. If they were to lose, then maybe the discussion starts, is this a team that can't win the big games? Their record against sort of the bigger sides in the Bundesliga hasn't been that great for all the consistency and dominance that we've seen for them domestically. In the big games, they haven't been, at least results-wise, quite as convincing. And the game comes at an interesting time because you've got Bayern Celtic either side of this game, plus then hard games against Frankfurt and Stuttgart coming up. So I think a Leverkusen win would perhaps create enough doubt and bad vibes to maybe unsettle Bayern a little bit. But 5 points still is a lot at that point. So Leverkusen have to not just win, they have to also hope that a win would start this usual sort of cycle of recriminations and question marks that often accompany defeats in Munich. But I think it's a tall order for them to do both, not just win, but win in a way that really unsettles Bayern.
Stuttgart and Frankfurt, two teams doing incredibly well in Europe, representing Germany. Yes, they'll face Bayern. Which one could potentially be a banana skin for Bayern in the Bundesliga title race, would you say?
Well, both games will be tough. Frankfurt have been a bit of a bogey team for Bayern in recent years. And Stuttgart are much improved under Sebastian Hoeneß. Yes, they got knocked out in the Champions League, but they're going really strong. They're on course for qualifying again, which I would probably rank even higher as an achievement if they were to repeat after losing so many key players. Guirassy, Anton, a couple of more. Ito went to Bayern. So both of them could be problematic, but that makes it all the more important that Leverkusen create that doubt, put pressure on Bayern, make them think, oh no, these are big games coming up. We have to sort things out. If Bayern win on Saturday, then the situation flips completely, because then all of a sudden they might be able to rest a few players, rotate a bit, have more than one eye on the Champions League, and will really pave the way for what looks like a very successful season with a league title at the end of it. So Leverkusen, they have to do it. They can speculate about Bayern against Frankfurt and Stuttgart, but if they don't do the homework, if they don't win on Saturday, I think it's effectively all over.
Yeah, Rafa, I would have to say for me, I think Frankfurt could be the one that really derails this Bundesliga title race and makes it open again. But Leverkusen cannot afford to trip over any more hurdles now if they're going to cause any problems for this Bayern Munich side.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's not just that they've dropped points, like an easy one like they did today against Wolfsburg, where they weren't really convincing. They created a few chances, and maybe Wirtz on another day wins it. And maybe last season they would have found a way to win it in the 96th minute or so. But they've dropped just a few too many points, especially at the start of the season. Now that you felt the consistency is back, this game came at a really bad time for them. It feels very momentous, I think, what happened this weekend, because not only did Bayern open up an 8 points gap, but also, I'm sure we're going to go on to that, Dortmund slipped up. And for them, I think fourth place is effectively over. At least it looks out of reach. So the two biggest sides, I think, had big results just going in different directions.
Yeah, just before we speak about Dortmund, Rafa, let's just talk about Harry Kane, because it looks like maybe, you don't want to jinx anything, this could be heading to his first title, obviously the Bundesliga trophy, and in the Champions League, we'll see what they can do. We just saw Tottenham crash out of the Carabao Cup against Liverpool, his old team. Obviously, Harry Kane is putting up fantastic numbers for Bayern Munich. What would this mean for him personally?
Well, I mean, it's big for him. It's big for the whole club because they weren't champions last year, and that is always a very painful off-season for Bayern. But of course, he can get that, how do you want to call it, that hoodoo off his back, that sort of mark that people who want to talk down his achievements, he will get out of the way. And the irony is, there are strikers that only think about themselves, that are only about scoring goals. And he'd be forgiven to do that because he scores an incredible amount of goals. But he's the opposite. He really wants to win titles, and he is really annoyed and fed up and wants to win something that is a collective award rather than another goal scorer of the season in Europe or in Germany. So I think for him, for the whole team, it would be a big moment, bigger than it otherwise would be. If Bayern would have won it last year, then nobody would be talking about this. We'd be talking about the Champions League, but would say, yeah, of course they've won the championship. That's what Bayern do, but they have to go further than that. But because they didn't, it kind of opened up a possibility to actually be successful in slightly different terms. And that goes for him, that goes for Vincent Kompany in his first season, but it also goes for Bayern on a whole. They really want to win that championship. And thanks to his goals, they're very close to it.
Rafa, talk to me about Dortmund. That yellow wall looks like it's got some cracks in it and it's starting to crumble. What is going on there?
Yeah, I mean, what's going on? There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. Dortmund have started to make some changes. Van Mislintat had to go. I think he might not be the last one to lose his position there. Of course, they fired Nuri Sahin only, 2 weeks ago. But the new guy comes in, Niko Kovac, and he loses a home that really Dortmund couldn't afford to lose. I think a draw was already a bad result, but to lose against Stuttgart, the main rival for that fourth spot, is a bit of a disaster. They're 6 points adrift now, and if Leipzig win, it would be 7 tomorrow. And that is a lot for a team that is inconsistent, that look a little bit like they don't have much of a structure. They have big players that can do big things. Jamie Gittens had another good game. Adeyemi had 1 or 2 moments. But as a team, they don't seem to have the kind of identity and ability to eke out results that some of the better sides ahead of them are. So it's a real problem for them. Hans-Joachim Watzke, the former CEO, who's now chairman, said that Dortmund can afford not to be in the Champions League financially for a couple of years, but really it would be a big blow. It's be only the second time in 10 years for that to happen to them. And remember what happened last time. That was when Jurgen Klopp left. So it's a big crisis moment for the club at the moment.
I suppose one silver lining, Rafa, is that they are still in the Champions League. They've obviously got Sporting over this 2-legged tie. We kind of saw it not so much extreme last season when they weren't as good domestically and then made it all the way to the Champions League final. So is there a world that they could make a deep run in Europe this competition?
Yeah, going by what they did last year, yes. They showed all the best performances in the Champions League. They got a little bit lucky with results, with a draw perhaps as well. And you could say the same. They could have had much worse opponents than Sporting. But it's going to be a real test. I think Niko Kovac has come in. He's changed the side in terms of the setup a little bit. He's naturally a more defensive, pragmatic coach. And for a team that was really going for it under Tulberg, the interim coach, it's another change. And it's the third coach in only 3 weeks. And I think that is a lot for them to digest when you don't have the time to train and you don't really have the time to settle. So I'd like to think that they can raise their game once more. I don't think Sporting are insurmountable as an obstacle going into the next round. But the way Dortmund are playing at the moment, you wouldn't really bet on them having that kind of upturn in fortune that's really necessary. I mean, they're 11th in the league. That is much worse than last year when they just missed out on the top 4. This is really, really bad. This is the worst season by far in 10 years.
Rafa, just a quick one before we let you go. You've already just said to us that Dortmund will be okay financially if they don't make the Champions League. But will they be able to hold some of the shining stars that I like a lot, like Gittins and Adeyemi? Will there be a chance where they could possibly have to sell these 2 youngsters?
I mean, that's the other point that Hans-Joachim Watzke make. We can survive by selling. I mean, that's always been the Dortmund way, and they'd be forced into selling, where perhaps if they get into the Champions League, they can maybe hold on to these players for one more year. I think Adeyemi, they would probably wouldn't mind so much selling. He hasn't quite fulfilled his potential, but Jamie Gittins is by far the most exciting player that they have. And we would be a shame if they have to let him go. But if they lose out on the Champions League, then I think it's inevitable that at least one big transfer has to be made. They need it to balance the books. And it means that they will have to start again. But look, their history in the last 10, 15 years has been sell to grow, sell to reinvest. And they've always been able to find good players and to keep a certain level. But you just wonder if this time maybe it'll be a slightly more negative trajectory, because the plateau isn't quite there. You know, they don't do it from a position of strength where they're fourth or third. They do it from a position where they have to rebuild the squad in midfield, so in mid-table, I should say. So it's a tough situation for them to be in.
Yeah, it really is. Well, we'll see what they can do in the Champions League this coming week, as we said, against Sporting. Rafa, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Bye.